I think Illawarra, having always been at the highest level and playing in the highest competition in the country, starting with the South East Basketball League, which we were a part of in the 60s, mid-60s. That was the forerunner to the National League. And then the Dr. Rasky from Newcastle, it was his brainchild to actually start the National League. And it was a number of years in the making, and '79 was the start of it all. And I think there was 11 teams in the league. Melbourne Tigers, or Melbourne as they were then, didn't think it would be successful, so they decided not to join. And I think it was about '84 that they did join. As far as Illawarra is concerned, the local supporters of basketball have always been quite passionate about the sport and about Illawarra playing at that highest level. So, '79, basically the team was formed with mostly local players. One import, in inverted commas, was Jim Slack, and he was promised possibly to help assist him in getting a job, and that was about it as far as monetary terms were concerned. And Ted Holcomb was another player who happened to go to the same college as Jim, Chico State, and that's where it all started. So the team basically from local players, Jim Slack, Ted Holcomb, got together, Joe Perugia as coach, and we're part of that 11-team competition. We played St Kilda in the first game, and they on paper were by far the toughest game, or the toughest team. They had a number of players they had recruited from Queensland, 3 Australian players, Danny Morceau, Larry Sengstock and Tony Barnett, and they had quite a budget to work with, and hence they had the 3 imported players, one from South Australia as well. So we were pretty much up against it to start with, but as it turned out, once again, we had a very good group, tight-knit group of players and talented players. And as it turned out, we played them here in front of what was a capacity crowd in those days on our now court 3, and it was a hell of a game, and we had a lot of support from the local media, the Mercury and Channel 4, and it turned into a 2-point win for the Hawks. All of our players had full-time jobs, the imports the same, so training 2 nights a week. And a number of the players also doing studies at TAFE or university, and travelling away on weekends, and again on a shoestring budget. We were lucky that we had flights and accommodation covered with local sponsorship, but that was about the limit. I think most players would have paid for the privilege to play, but once again, that was the reason they played, is because they loved the game. And that's probably the reason that the Hawks are still here, and that the community was so much behind the recent resurrection. This has always been known as the barn. The Snake Pit, before it was known as the Snake Pit, was a place that no visiting team really enjoyed playing in. Our change rooms were austere, to say the least, and if you ask about memories, our change room also had the toilet in the change room, and so there were a lot of pre-game nerves, so you can imagine the atmosphere in the room before a game, and that really is quite memorable, and I think the visiting teams had the same situation. We also had a problem in if the weather was wet or raining, that Court 3 had a number of spots on the court where there'd be little wet spots that we were quite well aware of, but we almost had teams boycott games on rainy days because of the situation. St Kilda had that unique situation where one of the players, his father was quite well off, and his name was, well, they called him Check Johnson, and he was pretty much responsible for recruiting, in those days, top line imports and also top line Australian imports, who, as I said, 3 Australian players from Queensland. So they were pretty competitive, and I guess other teams in the league that we had, Brisbane Bullets, which Cal Bruton played for, and everybody's pretty much familiar with Cal Bruton in his playing days, coaching days, etc. But they also had a reputation in Brisbane that they afforded visiting teams, and that was mainly putting the band right behind the bench of the visiting team. So more often than not, you had a timeout in those games, and you couldn't converse with the coach or otherwise. So also, I do recall that there were threats of boycotts with visiting teams, threatening not to play in Brisbane because of that situation. I have one particular memory that when Joe Ferrugia was coaching our team in '79, at quite an important stage of the game against Canberra, the coach ran onto the court to stop a fast break. Herb McGeechan was going on a fast break and he just couldn't handle it, so he ran on and tried to stop him. The '80 season we played under Coach Hurley, and we were playing Nunawading in Nunawading, and at half time we were playing pretty well, and they were a crack team in those days. They had Alan Black and they had Brendan Joyce as youngsters. People will be familiar with those names. And we were about 22 up at half time, and as the half time whistle blew, Barry Barnes, the former Australian coach, followed the referees into their change room and gave them what for, and then went into his own change room, which was right beside ours. And so we really didn't have a half-time talk, because all we did was sit back and listen to Barry Barnes rant and rave at his team about their performance. And as it turned out, they came out and caught back 20 points, but we still won the game by 2.